Things you didn't know about these 8 famous people. Hey there hustlers, welcome to Forever Hustle. As the saying goes, people don't always look like what they've been through. This is true for some of the most famous celebrities and public figures. In this video, we will take you through some interesting things you probably had no clue of about these 8 famous people. Are you ready to be inspired? Number 8. Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is one of the highest paid comedians in Hollywood. He came into the limelight with roles in Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber and Liar Liar. By the late 90s, Carrey was earning top dollar for his movies, making him a Hollywood superstar. Life, however, didn't always go so well for the rubber-faced performer. As a teenager, his family struggled financially. Carrey, as well as his brother, worked 8-hour shifts as a janitor after school and also worked as a security guard at the tyre factory where Carrey's father worked, just so the family could have food on their table and a roof over their heads. However, even with the 2 brothers taking on those extra jobs, the roof was eventually removed from their heads and Carrey was forced to live out of a Volkswagen van with his family. Things were also pretty difficult for Jim in school because of his dyslexia, and so at age 16, Carrey decided to drop out of high school. He began to perform comedy while still working at the same tyre factory his father worked in. Despite the difficult financial situation Carrey's father found himself in, he did his best to support Jim's young comedy career. Fortune finally shined on the Carrey family and they soon sorted out their financial issues. Jim was then able to leave the tyre factory and put all those extra hours into his comedy career. And the rest, as they say, is history. Number 7. Jack Ma. Today, Jack Ma is the founder of the multi-billion-dollar e-commerce platform Alibaba. As of July 2020, Jack Ma's net worth stands at $48 billion, making him the second wealthiest person in China. Ma's life is a lesson in determination and resilience. Jack Ma is a man with ambition, and he was never afraid to fail while chasing his dreams. For Ma, failure was just a path for growth. While most of his friends were getting into college, Jack had to take his college entrance exams 3 times before finally getting accepted into Hangzhou's Teachers Institute, where he graduated with a bachelor's in English. After his graduation, he then applied to Harvard University 10 times and got rejected every single time. He also applied for about 30 different jobs and was rejected at every turn. Not giving up, Jack Ma began creating online businesses. His first 2 businesses failed, but in the spirit of resilience, he went on to create a 3rd business with some of his friends, and this business is now known as Alibaba. Today, Alibaba has expanded beyond just an e-commerce platform. The Alibaba Group is a multinational conglomerate, and it all started with a man who quite simply never gave up. Number 6. J.K. Rowling. If you never heard the name Harry Potter, you probably grew up on another planet, or under the ocean. The Harry Potter book series captured the hearts of billions across the globe. The woman behind the masterpiece is J.K. Rowling. Today, she is the best-selling living author in Britain, with an estimated net worth of over $1 billion. Rowling recounts that her teenage years were not happy days. Her mother was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and she had a very strained relationship with her father. Just as she began writing Harry Potter, Rowling lost her mum. Rowling eventually got married, suffered a miscarriage and had a child. The same year her daughter was born, Rowling separated from her husband who was abusive. After the divorce, Rowling moved to Scotland to be closer to her sister. She was a jobless single mother. She was soon diagnosed with clinical depression and even became suicidal. However, she managed to use all her free time to write the Harry Potter novel. After the completion of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone if you're in America, the book was submitted to 12 publishing houses and every single one of them rejected the manuscript, but she didn't give up, and a year later she finally found a publisher to take on the book. Today, the initial print of the first Harry Potter novel cost between £160,000 and £250,000. Number 5. Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is a household name in the United States and is popularly called the Queen of all media. Oprah is best known for a talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show. This show ran for 25 years from 1986 to 2011 and was the highest rated TV programme of its kind in history. Oprah is also the first black female billionaire and North America's first black multi-billionaire. The Queen of Media rose from extremely humble beginnings, however. Oprah was born into a poverty-stricken rural area in Mississippi to an unmarried teenage housemaid, Vanita Lee. Oprah and her mother struggled to make ends meet while they lived in an inner city neighbourhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. As if poverty wasn't enough, at just 9 years old, Oprah began suffering sexual abuse from her cousin. This continued for 4 years until she ran away from home at age 13. At 14, just 1 year after leaving home, she got pregnant. Sadly, she lost her son shortly after he was born prematurely. At age 19, Oprah got a gig as a co-anchor for the local evening news. This was the beginning of a career that would span decades and make Oprah Winfrey one of the most recognisable names in all of America. Number 4. Colonel Sanders. Colonel Heartland Sanders is the founder of the super popular fast food chain Kentucky Fried Chicken. And yes, he's the guy whose face is on every KFC. Sanders worked a variety of jobs before he began to cook and sell meals to travellers at a gas station in Corbin, Kentucky. During this time, Colonel Sanders perfected the recipe for his chicken. After about 10 years, Sanders finally began to find success at his roadside restaurant. Things then took a bad turn when unfavourable road constructions around his restaurant meant that he had to close shop due to poor patronage. Sanders was forced to sell off site of the restaurant at a loss, but he didn't give up. He decided to offer his chicken recipe to potential franchisees. It is said that his recipe was rejected 1,009 times before Pete Harmon finally saw the potential in it. While searching for franchisees, Sanders and his wife had it very rough. They lived out of his car and sometimes had to beg for meals from friends. Sanders' resilience eventually paid off, and by 1964, KFC had over 600 outlets and was now worth millions of dollars. That same year, Sanders reluctantly sold his company for $2 million. While Sanders was not entirely pleased with how KFC was run afterward, his tenacity in the face of failure is still truly inspiring. Number 3. Walt Disney. Walt Disney is the American entrepreneur and entertainer who built an empire in the form of the Walt Disney Company, which today is a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut of a company. Walt Disney is a pioneer of the American animation industry and a Hollywood icon. However, his road to this legendary status was not an easy one. At a very young age, Walt Disney began as a newspaper delivery boy, waking up at 4:30 a.m. every morning to deliver the Times newspaper before running off to school. After school, he would do the same thing but for the Star newspaper. These papers probably birthed his interest in drawing cartoons. In 1921, he formed his first animation company in Kansas City. He became quite successful but began to experiment with new storytelling techniques. This led to increased running costs, and ultimately he became bankrupt and his company was dissolved. He could no longer pay rent or even afford a decent meal. Although there were challenges, he kept at it, and in 1927 he created Mickey Mouse. Walt tried to strike a deal with MGM Studios to distribute the cartoon, but MGM rejected the offer and told him this idea was bound to fail. Well, they couldn't have been more wrong, as Mickey Mouse is now one of the most recognisable characters of all time. Number 2. Sam Walton. You may remember from some of our previous lists that Sam Walton is the founder of Walmart and was once the richest man in America. Like many celebrities on our list, Walton also had a challenging start to life. Walton grew up on a farm milking cows and selling milk to customers. He also worked as a newspaper delivery boy for Columbia Daily Tribune. Walton did all of these to contribute his family's income as they struggled through the Great Depression. After graduating from college, Walton was inducted into the military service during World War II. After his military service in 1945, Walton began managing his first variety store at age 26. This was the beginning of a hugely successful career that saw him become an icon and pioneer in the American retail industry. Number 1. Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking can be referred to as the Albert Einstein of his time. He was a theoretical physicist and a world-renowned cosmologist. Hawking was a genius from an early age, finishing with a first-class bachelor's degree in physics from Oxford University. He later went on to obtain his PhD in applied mathematics and theoretical physics from the University of Cambridge in 1966. Virtually throughout his adult life, Hawking battled ALS, a form of motor neuron disease. He was diagnosed with this disease at 21 and given only a few years to live. However, Hawking defied all odds and battled ALS for the remaining part of his life, eventually losing the battle at 76. Over the decades of his life, Hawking became confined to a wheelchair. He was only able to communicate using a speech-generating device. Initially, this device was controlled using a handheld switch, but later on using a single cheek muscle. Nonetheless, Hawking's contribution to science and physics was simply outstanding. He died as one of the brightest human minds in history. despite his disabilities. So there you have it, guys. No matter where you are right now or how difficult your situation seems to be, remember to keep grinding and keep hustling. If you don't give up, you're sure to achieve your goals. If you enjoyed this video, drop a thumbs up down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on the bell notification so you get notified when we upload a new video. Also, if you enjoyed this video and others we've done, don't be afraid to share it with your friends. Lastly, check out our video for some daily affirmations you can make for 21 days to keep you motivated as you reach for your goals. And until next time, hustlers, stay hustling.